Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you another one of my long-term reviews of some of my favorite lenses. In this case, I'm looking at another one of Samyang's Tiny series, and another one of the lenses that, like the 75mm F1.8 that I talked to you about a few months ago, is a lens that I continue to reach for all the time, several years after its release. Now, I actually most often reach for it for video use, and in fact, I would say probably more than half of the videos that you see on this channel have been filmed with the Samyang 75mm F1.8 autofocus lens. The reason for that is, number one, it's a great focal length. Number two, it is, as you can see, very compact. And so if I'm out, shooting in the woods, as I am today, it's very easy to pack along. And so I don't have to pack a heavy lens. But also it does a really rock solid job of tracking my face, of delivering consistently focused results that I don't have to worry about. I can just set up the camera and not have to worry about it. It does a good job with auto detect, all of those things. But it also just delivers video quality that I look at the images and I say, I really, really like the look of that. It's equally true when it comes to shooting stills. It's just a lens that does a little bit of everything very, very well. And it is so compact and yet so good that it might just be good enough for you to say, forget about an 85mm f1.4 because this lens just gets the job done. We'll dive into it in detail and give you my long-term observations right after a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Phantom Wallet, the minimalist modern wallet that is now even better with the new Phantom X that is crafted from aluminum right here in Canada. It is 22% smaller and 35% lighter, while still making it easy to access your cards and money when you need them, thanks to their unique fanning mechanism. You could even customize your wallet due to its modular design, with accessories like a money clip, cash holder, ID display, and even Chipolo and AirTag tracking integration. Visit store.phantomwallet.com to check out their unique sizes, styles, and finishes that span from aluminum to wood to carbon fiber, and use code DUSTIN15 for 15% off when you're ready to check out. So as noted, this is a truly compact lens. In fact, palm size, as you can see, despite being a longer focal length and a fairly large maximum aperture. The lens itself is only 65mm in diameter, which gives you a very common 58mm front filter thread. It is only 69mm in overall length and weighs in at 230 grams or right over 8 ounces. And so obviously that is compact in every detail. It comes with a lens hood, and it also comes with a nice little carrying case. Now, this lens is part of an evolution that I was observing over the, about a 1.5 to 2 year period with Samyang, in that they slowly began to add some of the features that I was requesting. Although I love the 45mm f1.8 because of its great optics and reliable autofocus, it's a very plain Jane, a plastic fantastic. That's true here too. This is a very plasticky lens, which is part of why it is so lightweight. But it was part of a time when Samyang began to offer more and more features. In this case, that was for the first time an inclusion of a switch on the side, a custom switch that allowed you to do a couple of things. If you set it up with the Samyang lens station, you could tweak the behavior of the focus ring and assign a value to mode 1 and mode 2. In my case, I assigned mode 1 to be an aperture ring, and so that I could control the aperture by using the focus ring, and then in mode 2 allows me to switch to a manual focus and to use the focus ring for autofocus, or for manual focus, I should say. And so having the ability to use that as an aperture ring is something that I personally really enjoy, because I like being able to control aperture in that fashion and on the fly. Now, the next lens in the series was the 35mm f1.8. It added weather sealing, and then another highlight in the series for me was the 24mm f1.8. It had the custom switch, it had the weather sealing, but it also added a focus hold button and a unique infinity focus feature for shooting astrophotography. And so we see that progression for Samyang along the way, where they've added more and more features. This lens doesn't get all of those features, unfortunately, so we're lacking the focus hold button. We're also lacking weather sealing, which is something obviously I would love to have seen on a lens like this. But what you have here, while compact and plasticky feeling, has held up just fine for me in several years of use. I've had zero problems with its performance. We've got 9 rounded aperture blades inside, and as we're going to see, it produces some beautiful bokeh. And it also has a linear stepping motor, STM motor inside, more of which we'll detail in just a moment. So once again, while what you have here is not premium in terms of the build quality, it's a lens that is held up, and frankly it looks pretty much just like it did on the day that I got it. And so it's a lens that I have been happy with, particularly when you consider the price, which is always inexpensive, and at the moment the price is actually lower than what I've ever seen it before. You can get this lens for less than 300 bucks at B&H Photo at the moment. That's a fantastic bargain, as we're going to see when we look further at the performance. So as mentioned, this has a linear stepping motor, and that focus motor has proved to be very reliable in my experience for stills and for video work. Focus pulls are nice and snappy. There's a lot of focus, confidence when shooting both video and stills, and as I've moved to other cameras along the way, I've used it both on full frame and APS-C, and so I have used it on, cameras all the way from I've used it on the A9, A7R Mark III, I've used it on the A7 IV, I've used it on the Alpha 1, and then on the A6400 and A6600. I've not been disappointed with autofocus in any of those cases, and I feel that overall we're getting a nice focus performance, and there is some focus breathing here, but overall still it's a lens that, as I said, I reach for very often for video work. I will note that the nature of the manual focus ring, while it is maybe not 100% linear, it seems to be very close to linear in operation, and I found that focus pulls can be quite repeatable, and so it gets the job done there. So I'm very happy with autofocus. I hear basically no focus sound in operation, either for stills or video. And so again, there's really nothing to complain about. This does an exceptionally good job, and I've managed to shoot a pretty wide variety of different activities, and I've been very happy with the results. It's been very reliable for portrait work. I've shot a lot of portraits with this little lens. It is a great compact portrait lens and delivers very consistently, focus results on the eyes of my human subjects. I've also gotten good results when shooting animal subjects with it as well. So very strong performance there, which again is a big part of the reason why it continues to be a favorite of mine. But perhaps above all else, it is the image quality from this lens that, much like the 45mm, just has a really great aesthetic quality to it. Let's dive in and let's take a closer look at the image quality results from the lens. So we'll start our optical breakdown by pointing out that there is a very mild amount of a pincushion distortion, as you can see here, uncorrected. There is some vignette, but it is nothing too severe here, so no big deal there. This lens is not flawless when it comes to controlling chromatic aberrations, but even on high-resolution bodies, you can see here that there really isn't a lot to be concerned about. As you move towards defocus, number one, the quality of the bokeh is really quite nice. You can see very nice circular shapes, not a lot of inner lining, and as you move towards defocus, it is really, really soft, which we'll explore more in just a moment. But you can see down in these kind of high-contrast areas that there is a minimal amount of fringing that shows up there. Now in this shot here, where I was just kind of capturing the sun kind of dancing along the top of the water, so you can see in these very bright water droplets that there is some fringing here before the plane of focus. Again, not much after the plane of focus, so as we saw with the bokeh highlights, that there's not a lot of green fringing beyond. There is a little bit of magenta fringing before the plane of focus. Now, since I did my original review, I have upped the amount of resolution that I am kind of pushing the lens against. So in this case, moving up from 42 to 50 megapixels of resolution. Here we are at 200% on the Alpha 1. In the center of the frame, you can see that that is just exquisitely sharp. I mean, you're going to not find a whole lot of lenses that have better resolution and contrast in the center of the frame on a high resolution sensor. Mid-frame, likewise, looks really exceptionally good. You can see everywhere that we scroll here looks great. And even as we move towards the corner, the upper left corner of the bill is still looking nice and crisp. You can see that there is a pretty marked drop off as you get towards the extreme corner at f1.8. We can see only minimal amounts of lateral chromatic aberrations, and so other than just a drop off in the last few percentage points of the image circle, we can see that this is a really strong optical performance. Stopping down to f2 provides little visible improvement, mostly because it was already so good to begin with. And if we look on down, everything is still looking great. We'll see if it made any difference in that corner. I do think that there is a tiny bit more contrast, but things are largely the same at f2 as what we saw at f1.8. Now, stopping down to f2 only provided very minimal improvement, not really enough to appreciate. Here at f2.8, we can see the contrast has ticked up a little bit more. You can see a little bit more at the mid-frame, and as we look down towards this bottom corner, you can see that the resolution profile is pushing out just a little bit further with better contrast here and into the building, though not quite to the very edge as of yet. We start to see more improvement when we stop on down to f4 as far as reaching into the corners. And by f5.6, we have got a crisp looking result right out to the corners of the frame. Our minimum aperture is f22, though as per usual, this really should be avoided as much as possible. It's actually better than a lot of lenses in terms of not completely losing it, but you can see that even wide open, you're getting just a lot more punch, and so it's not really worth stopping it on down. Now, if you go to a 1:1 magnification and you look at real-world landscapes, this is at f5.6, you can see that the lens really provides just beautiful detail and contrast right up to the very edge of the frame. You can see all throughout this very deep image here with lots of layers that resolution is just looking good throughout and holding up very well even on a high resolution body. And so this is a lens that gets very, very sharp for such a compact package. I actually enjoy the focal length for a lot of landscape type work, and so you can see here a early fog on the river. You can see that in the area where contrast is still good due to fog not being there, detail is just fantastic, and it did a great job of just capturing the feel of this scene as it kind of went towards the ghostly type aspect of the fog on the river. It's also capable, however, of recording very richly saturated colors, as you can see here, and again with excellent detail everywhere that you look. A really, really fantastic looking image, great contrast, great color. There's something that is just really appealing about the images that this lens produces. I liked it also for monochrome type images. Again, just the basic perspective, and so as these geese begin to hit the water, you can see the great detail in the scene, and for a color look at the scene with a really moody kind of storm rolling in, this is just another image that I think just really works. And again, the focal length, but then also the optics of the lens make it just a surprisingly strong performer. Now, an area of performance that isn't amazing is the minimum focus distance, which is only 69 centimeters. And so it will feel a little bit constricting at times, and the magnification of 0.13 times is not super high. What we do see, however, is that we get a nice flat plane of focus and very sharp looking results up close. And so that at least is somewhat of a compensation. Here's a few examples of real-world up-close shots, close to that minimum focus distance. You can see both of the things on display. Magnification is not super high, but detail and contrast is fantastic. And as we're going to explore, there's something that's really, really beautiful about the bokeh rendering from this lens. Here's another shot looking at the freesia here. You can just see, beautiful, beautiful detail and contrast. So the magnification level's not incredibly high, but the images you can produce are of a very high level. Another shot here, great contrast in color and really, really soft, beautiful bokeh. Even here in a potentially complex scene with a lot of these dried weeds in the autumn, you can just see that, it's handled all of these, really hard edges without too much drama there, and the byproduct is there's really crisp detail on the subject, and the bokeh looks really quite nice. Again, here with this barbed wire fence, which gives, because it is a hard edge, it gives a lot of potential for ugliness, but you can see that everything just melts away really, really nice, beautiful bokeh. So all of this adds up to a surprisingly compelling portrait lens for such a compact and beautiful little lens. You can see that the detail on the subject is really fantastic. The bokeh is super nice. Another shot here where you can see the background has just faded away beautifully, but the detail on the eyes and the quality of focus is very high. I've used it at wedding type events, and so you can see here that in this subject, you can see just the detail. This is f2.5, is just, you know, off the charts good on the Alpha one. Amazing detail, and then really nice overall rendering and quality of bokeh. Here again, you can see of the bride and groom, you can see that the detail is just really fantastic, great contrast, beautifully defocused background, just a really great looking result. Here, kind of a fun portrait of some of my kids, and you can see once again that, you know, where the subject is in focus, detail is fabulous. Transitioning to defocus is very nice. The whole scene is rendered well. One of my wife and I together, and again, you can see that even though this was not handled by a professional, as you can see, so it looks like the shutter speed got a little bit low, a little bit of motion blur there, but as you can see, the image as a whole has really great pop, great color, and here one that was done of our family. I think this actually ended up going out on like our Christmas card for the year, and everybody looks nice and crisp. Colors are very nice. Just the overall scene is excellent. All is not flawless, however. Here you can see that there are some flare artifacts as the sun poked through the clouds. And in my original test of the lens, I did note that at certain angles, you can definitely introduce some ghosting artifacts, whether you're at stop down here at f11, or even if you're wide open at f1.8. They're still, though they're, I think, less obtrusive than they are stop down, there's still some artifacts, so you need to be careful in the way that you compose the image. So the unique thing about a long-term review is you get the opportunity to shoot in a lot more different environments, different seasons, maybe traveling and in different kind of venues. So the range of photography you get to do as a reviewer like myself, it obviously extends, because I haven't been using this lens solely as a reviewer. I've been using it just for my own shooting pleasure or for the various things that I need to do as a part of my photography work. So some lenses, they grow on you over time as you use them more. Some lenses, you end up leaving them increasingly in the closet and not bringing them out. And it's typically those lenses that after a while, if I don't use a lens, I typically will sell it and let it go. This is not a lens that I am looking to let go of in any time in the near future. I love it for both video and stills work. And like all of these Samyang tiny lenses, you can throw it in your bag and you can bring it along, maybe to augment a different focal length. Because it is so compact and lightweight, even if you don't end up pulling it out, you don't feel bad for bringing it along. It's hard for me to think of a lens that offers more value for the money than what this Samyang lens does. It really, as you have seen, is quite good in pretty much everything. And while it's not a perfect lens, for a price point of under $300, it's really hard to bet against it. And it's obviously, while it's not an exact equivalent of a lens like the Sony 75mm f1.8, it's close enough in focal length and close enough in performance that you might want to save a few $100 and save a little bit of size in your bag and get this tiny lens from Samyang instead. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you look in the description down below, you can find linkage to my original text review of the lens, an image gallery with an updated gallery with some long-term photos. There's also some buying links there if you'd like to purchase one for yourself. Link is to follow myself or Craig on social media or to get channel merchandise. You can become a patron, and of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.